Carol Chisholm, and I'm your host for Wonderfully Made, where we inspire you to be courageous and have courage just to walk in your identity in Christ, in your own skin, and be comfortable. And so we're just glad tonight that you joined us. We have an amazing guest. So go on and like and share tonight because we're going to give you some information. Our guest is going to share their story tonight that may impact you and help you in ways that you may not realize. And so just because we're talking about alopecia, this could help you if you're struggling with anything. Because, when we have low self-esteem for whatever reason, or we have, a identity crisis for whatever reason, we all hurt the same. We all suffer the same. We all are depressed the same. And so I really want you to go on and comment and share so that maybe you know someone who has alopecia. Maybe you know someone who has anxiety. Maybe you know someone who's depressed and they're going through a really difficult time with COVID and things like that. Go on and and share so that you can be a blessing to someone else, okay? So tonight, we are speaking with Staci L. Halton, and she is an alopecia advocate, mother, motivational speaker. She's a certified personal trainer. Wow, I need that. A coach, a podcast host, and a chaplain. Stacey was diagnosed with alopecia areata at the age of 19. After over 20 years, in September of 2019, she grew tired of hiding and began living her life bald and free. I'll say bald, bold, and free. In April of 2020, Stacey founded a nonprofit organization called the Alopecia Queen Movement, which is an organization that offers support to women who have been diagnosed with alopecia. Stacey hosts a live show on Facebook every Sunday at 5 p.m. Each month, there's a unique topic and of discussion that allows women to share their stories. Stacey uses her platform to educate people about alopecia and to also empower more women to walk in their baldness with boldness. And that she does. And so tonight I want you to welcome to the stage Miss Stacey. Hey, Stacey.
Hello. Good evening. Great evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to finally be here. I've been watching and supporting from afar, and it's finally great to be invited, and I'm so excited about tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to come. It's really important that one, not just as bald women, but as women, we lift each other and we empower each other. And then as bald women to support one another because, it's easier to go through something when you're not going through it alone.
It's so true. I find myself saying that a lot is that, you are not alone. And I think it's better felt when you actually see that than hearing it. So yeah, I agree.
So we're so glad tonight that you're here, that we're going to talk about alopecia. We're going to decrease the stigma that may still be around, as we're growing and the movement is getting bigger and it's becoming more, people are becoming more aware of alopecia. Sometimes we think, it's okay. We don't, So
I love it.
Go ahead.
I love how it's spreading And I love how it's getting larger and it's growing legs and our strides are getting longer. And I don't know, most of us, of course, in the Baldy movement have seen more celebrities coming forth and support in movies and film and entertainment all across the board. And I would say the first big break of that what was for me was seeing a whole bunch of bald, beautiful queens in Wakanda. Okay.
Wakanda forever.
From there, it just seemed to pick up more momentum. And of course, we can go back and look and pull up many beautiful baldy queens on covers of magazines. But now it's starting to be more common. And I think it has a lot to do with us having these conversations and us continuing to just walk bold in it and talk about it. That's part of advocacy. And I'm just excited to see where it goes and where it's going to be. Like possibly like 5 years from now, we could just be seeing a whole sea of bald people. You never know.
We're taking over. So anybody who doesn't want to go along with us, move out of our way because we're rolling.
Yes.
We're rolling. Yes. All right. So Stacey, tell us about yourself. I know I gave the bio about all that you do. You know, you're busy. And so tell us more about yourself, what hobbies you like. Tell us about your family, you know, what you like to do in your free time, if you have any.
Good. You know what? That's interesting about the free time because I'm starting to learn. We talked a little bit about that, how to include more free time. But I am a mother of two beautiful children. I have a soon-to-be 15-year-old and a handsome little 4-year-old. And so even with the age gap, you would think that they were just like, they're two peas in a pod. And they both give me a balance because you have one that's in one generation and the other in a whole nother generation. And so I'm learning a lot through them and from them. And it's just like we're our own little team. And I thank God for them. And I'm so grateful and honored to be their mom. I moved to Orlando not many months ago. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, so I'm a true Ohioan. Yes.
We won't hold that against you.
Don't. And I spent some time most of my schooling was actually done in New York. So I spent basically a bulk of my life was growing up in Western New York. And so I believe that just the way that my life has this way and that way with different cities and states, and it's made me more of a well-rounded person. And it's also made me be able to be more sensitive as well as show compassion to just different lifestyles, just having been moved around a lot. But I believe I'm settled here in Florida. I think Florida loves me, and I'm loving it too.
Well, good. Well, of course, coming out of all that cold weather in Cleveland.
Oh my goodness. That was the one thing that sold me, was just like, yeah, I can deal with this weather year round. So yeah, when it gets cool, it's still warmer than what I was used to.
Right, exactly.
In my free time, I love cooking. I enjoy cooking. Like you mentioned in bio, I am a certified personal trainer, but that also goes along with me finding new meals to cook that's healthy for the family, but that doesn't lose its savor or flavor. I'm big on using natural, just your vegetables to come out with better flavors instead of using too much seasoning. And my guinea pigs are my children. But you can get children to eat healthy and they not know the difference, then you've won. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's a win. You're absolutely right.
It's a win. So cooking, I don't know, it just relaxes me. I love cooking for people that I love. I put the music on and I'm going for it, you know. So cooking is definitely number one it's definitely up there. Music too. I love music. I come from a family of singers, musicians, and grew up with just music being a part of my life. I learned how to spell my name because of a song. I knew how to remember my address and my phone number because it was a song. So music is and will always be a part of my life. So dealing with, I can listen to it. I can go hear it live. It's just, embedded in me. So anything involving music is something I love, and traveling. So those things are, I would say, at the top of my list of things to do during my free time.
Awesome. We have that in common. I love music, of course, and I love to travel, but that cooking, you can have that.
I'll have it for the both of us. You eat and I'll cook. How about that?
Okay, there you go. I used to cook for years when the kids were young, but
yeah.
Now that they're grown, my husband loves to cook. So you know what?
There you go.
Let him do it. Encourage him. Hey, what's for dinner today? So yeah. Look, tell the listeners about your alopecia story, your journey, because you said it started at 19 and you were diagnosed with alopecia areata. You can tell us what that is also.
Yeah. So it started off actually probably symptoms of alopecia areata for me started probably around 16, 17. But I didn't really know what it was until I started losing my hair. So when I say symptoms, I'm talking about tenderness on my scalp, scarring, and just soreness was happening around the top part of my head. I remember around 16, 17. Now, because in those days I rocked a ponytail with freeze curls, and I always had my hair pulled up, and if it wasn't pulled up, it was in some type of French roll or something. And of course, the first thing that came to mind was, okay, let me just start wearing my ponytails. Let me loosen up with the bobby pins. But it wasn't until I was 19 and was curling my hair, and hair came out of the curler instead of just the curl just falling. Yeah, it fell. And so with it falling, at first my immediate thing was, you know what? It's probably because the heat was too high. And I'm gonna say this, I wouldn't say I'm a pro, but you know how to do your hair, right? And so this iron is not hot, it's normal. There's something else going on. And so when I took the mirror and looked in the back, it was about the size of a silver dollar missing. And it just, the first thing you're like, oh my God. But then of course I'm like, okay, I got to fix this really quick because I'm on my way out the door and I'm not trying to worry about this right now. And so that started the first steps of me hiding. That was the first cover up, so to speak. And so I just curled over it, fixed it. I was good to go. But what was happening was it started to spread. And the more it spread, the more covering that I was having to do with either hair pieces, braids, styles. And to be honest with you, I even stopped using chemicals and actually was able to grow my hair around that area. And I actually had locks for about 7 years. I had locks for 7 years. And so what was happening between 19 and I would say between my daughter was born in 06, other spots were happening. So I would have a spot at the nape of my neck. My edges were getting falling out, and it just became unbearable. And I did my first chop, so to speak. And it was devastating. It was devastating because when you're 19, you're just starting life. You want to be a woman and you want to be free, and you don't want to be confined to, covering up a spot in your head, And so that was part of the reason why I just wasn't really able to face it. I was just going to go around and cut corners. And when I had my daughter, I basically, let me back up. So when I lost that hair, I did schedule an appointment with my dermatologist, and I sat in the chair, and it just was like he knew exactly what it was. As soon as he looked at my scalp, I was like, oh yeah, this is alopecia areata, like that. And it sounded like a foreign language to me. I've never heard that before. And I was in denial. He gave me this cream and that was it. And that was it because I was afraid. That was it because I didn't want to face the real music of it. That was it for me because I wasn't going back, because if I went back, it was real. So I just forged along, used my own little oils and listened to some hair cosmetologists, within my community that did the best that they could with putting some topical stuff on it. And, oh girl, it's growing back. knowing it really wasn't, but we just believe. Kept on.
Yeah, you're right. We just believe because don't take our hope away from us.
Don't take it away from us. And then at one point, and some of them honestly didn't really know either. There were some cosmetologists that were out there that, were become friends and family even, and they just want the best for us. And some of them, even with the teaching and schooling that they had, never really knew what it was. I think too that now we're starting to educate ourselves, and more cosmetologists and hairstylists are starting to understand we can camouflage and cover up, but we still got to get to what this really is. And I think that's why it's so important for there to be kind of like a marriage, if you will, with dermatologists and cosmetologists, so that we can kind of come to a happy medium as to, okay, this is what the diagnosis is, and there is hope, so let's work together, or the hair follicles are dead. And that was pretty much what was told to me. And again, like I said, I just didn't want to face the music. And for years I did.
Yeah, I did the same thing. And I totally agree that there needs to be a coming together of the dermatologist with the cosmetologist.
Yeah.
Because the one time that I did consult a dermatologist, it wasn't even about my hair. I just posed a question. It was about a skin condition that I had. So I just posed a question to the dermatologist, and they said, "Oh, that's alopecia." Well, I wouldn't go to the hairstylist either because I was in denial, too embarrassed, too ashamed.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't go there either, but I would, tell them the story when I would take my daughter, and I would say, "Well, I have I have bald spots." And they would say, and I told, the background was that when it started falling out, and they said, "Oh, it's probably chemical burns." So of course, that was hope, right? Chemical burns, okay, we can work around this, but alopecia, that was hopeless.
Yes.
So, right, I agree with that.
And I think that part too is what you're saying is, I think if there was more education around the fact that just because it is alopecia doesn't mean necessarily that it is the end all. I think at that point we need to say you have permission to the women that have been diagnosed. You have permission to decide at that point how you want to continue on. Some women decide to continue on with walking their boldness and they're bald. Some women decide to just say, you know what, okay, it's not growing back, but I'm just going to continue to do this with my hair or add pieces, and that's fine. But I don't think that there's enough of giving us an opportunity to own how we're going to walk it out. I think if we did that, we would find more women being more free to be exposed with saying, I have alopecia, yet I decide to wear my wigs. I have alopecia, yet I decide, you know what I mean? And I think at the end of the day, if a woman can come to terms with looking at themselves in the mirror without anything and say, I have alopecia, and now I'm going to decide how to walk it out, I think that would change the whole trajectory of their life and their journey. That's what I had to do.
Yes.
That's exactly what I had to do. And yes, it did take from 19 to 39 of me just figuring out life anyway. Because if you think about that's 2 decades of womanhood, of just trying to figure out what it is to be a woman. Then I became a wife, and then I became a mother. Then I dealt with divorce. Then I dealt with, so I went through a myriad of things, just trying to figure out Stacey. And then you got alopecia on top of that. It's something that even to this day, as I'm writing this book, it's just still like, wow, how in the world did this come to be? But I'll never forget the day when I just was like, you know what, I'm done. I started rocking the wigs, even had a friend of mine do some customized wigs for me, paid some money for them, and they were beautiful. But I felt like I was not being true to myself. I just felt like I was putting on something, literally and figuratively speaking, covering up something that needed to be exposed. And I knew that I had to get to the bottom of that internally. And part of that was me exposing externally. And so I did that. It was on September the 11th, to be exact. Couldn't be more dramatic than that day. Right?
True. You'll never forget it. True.
Just like those twin towers came together, mine spiritually came together that day. And I was just like, okay, I'm definitely going to do this today. I just went to the beauty supply store, which just so happened to be up the street at the time, and bought not one, but 2 clippers. Cause I'm like, I'm gonna do it right. And I'm gonna do it. And that's it. So let me make sure I got this together. And I'll never forget the lady that was helping me. She said, "You just gonna cut it all off, aren't you?" And it shocked me because I had seen her before, but we've never had a conversation. But her seeing me with these 2 boxes of clippers, it did something to her just visually. And then I said, "Yeah, I am." She said, "Go for it." And at that moment, I was just like, I'm doing this. And I was like, okay, So I did it. I went home and I took a before picture and I just started shaving. And as I can remember it like it was yesterday. As I'm going through this, I hear my hair getting hit by the blade, that noise, that sound. And as I'm cutting off, it's just almost as if I'm cutting off dead weight from years ago, from those 20 years of just hiding, from those 20 years of covering up, from those 20 years of denial, those 20 years of just trying to figure out things on my own. Now we're being exposed. And as I'm taking this off, the hair was just falling on my lap, just falling on my face. And then I could feel, because the fan was going, I could feel the air hit my scalp for the first time. Even that, the sensation of that was just like jarring. It was like, oh my God, and just going for it. And when it was done, it was a mess. Hair was everywhere, flaky stuff everywhere, because I had some alopecia scarring as well, which is part of my diagnosis too. And it was just a mess. And I'm like, and I looked at that mess and I'm like, now I got to clean this up. Now I have to really be able to understand that all that hiding created a mess. Yes. That's what we have to realize, is that when we're hiding, we may think, oh, it's so put together because no one knows what's going on. That's a lie that we tell ourselves. Yes. It's a mess. We keep piecing things together to make it look perfect. No, it's not a reality that I wanted to continue to live anymore. And so I just took everything off, took a nice shower, and I said, I'm going to go out. I'm going to leave out this house. And one of my favorite places to go is Starbucks. Got out to the lady. Oh, yes. And I said, I'm going to go to my favorite place. And I wasn't comfortable enough to go in the store, but I went to the drive-through. And as I'm sitting there, now I did my makeup, child. Listen, you couldn't tell me. Yes. Tell me that I was not a bald boss in all of an hour. From that transformation went real quick. And I'm sitting in the car and I'm practicing how I'm going to order. This is me practicing how I'm going to order, practicing how I'm going to even get my stuff. And this is me in my head in the car. And as I'm doing that, I look and I see in my rearview mirror a reflection of me. And I looked and I was just like, wow, I'm doing this. I'm really out here bald. Wow, like that. And this is going in my head. And as I'm looking at myself, thinking these words, it's like I'm growing. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm discovering. I'm really getting myself acclimated to this life. Just those words. And that's why I always say, yes, our words are powerful, but they also create. Every time we speak something about ourselves, we're recreating and creating who we are destined to be. So I was like, girl, you bad. Look at you. You really out here doing this. You about to order your mocha latte with your whipped cream and everything. And you're going to take that banana bread and you're going to go ahead. And by the time I got to the lady, she was stunned because of all of this. Because you don't see yourself. You don't see a lot of us around. Let's be honest. You don't.
Right.
And so when you do, you remember it and you look at it. And I saw my reflection from her looking back at me, and I was nervous. I'm gonna be completely honest. I was nervous. I was just like, okay, let me just take this in. And she was like, oh, almost like she wanted to say, oh wow, but she was like, oh, here you are. And I'm like, thank you, and just keep breathing, Stacey. Breathe, take your food, pay for it, and go. And that right there, what I just shared with you was something that I take with me every day, because I never want to forget the major step that I made in my life to get me to today. Because I know that there is another woman on the other side of what I just shared that is looking forward to that same moment that she'll have, that she'll be able to share. Because here's the thing, we all have our different journey. We all have our different walk. We never can forget about the first time, because that first time is actually your first step to freedom. I never want to forget what that was like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-mm. You, this was amazing. You said some really powerful things. I love that the power of your words, that they create.
Yeah.
I love that. So, because I never really thought of that, but they did. They created something for me, a new beginning, a new path, you know. And then I want to encourage people too, even this is Alopecia Awareness Month, and we're not necessarily as advocates, we're not saying, okay, you have alopecia, take your wig off and just rock your ball. I love that you said we give ourselves permission to live and choose the way that we want to go. So it's not an outward thing where we are taking off our wigs and exposing ourselves. It's an inward thing, because when we go through, like you said, we go through denial, go through, the loss. We're grieving because our hair is gone. We don't know what to do. We're confused. And because our hair is such a tie and a link to our femininity,
it is.
We lose that as well, or we think we do.
We think we do. I think, and so that's. I don't mean to interrupt, but I that right there is something that I'm gonna really. I'm moving towards more of what we think femininity is versus really what it is, and I'm actually looking back at creation. I'm going all the way back to when we were in our mother's womb, when everybody looked the same except for our genitalia. Everybody had a bald head. We started off with a bald head. And some will say when we come to the end of our lives, we're going to end up bald too. You know what I'm saying? But my thing is, femininity is a way of you expressing who you are as a woman, right? But doing it in such a way that is distinct to you, to Stacey. I know Stacey's feminine because not just because of her glasses that she wears or her earrings, but it's just the way she walks. It's the way she presents herself in conversation. It's her way that she can smile. It's the way she looks at something. It's the way that she beholds beauty herself. It's her essence. It's her womanhood. And I think too, like, we have to start re-identifying what beauty is when it comes to women.
Yes.
Masculinity is when it comes to being a man. I think, and I know that that's a touchy subject for people, but I'm raising a woman, a girl that will be a woman, and a young little boy and so, like I said, their lives are teaching me how to redefine beauty for a boy and a girl. And it's so important, because when my son looked at me, when I picked him up that same day after I shaved my head, because I was wondering what his response was, and I'll tell you what my daughter's response was. You know what his response was? He looked up and said, "Hey, mommy," because all he saw was this, my face. Yes. All he saw was my eyes, the shape of my nose. All he saw was he identified me by my face, not what was coming out of my hair or not by if I had makeup on or lashes. He identified me by my face. My daughter, she saw me when I when I did a chop after I had my son in 2017. I did do a big chop, and I posted up a picture on Facebook, but I never went outside. My hair kind of grew back again, and I was just going back under with the wigs. So she saw it before, but her first word out of her mouth was, I wonder what my son, I wonder what Carter's going to think, because she was used to it. And I was like, we're going to see. So she was more protective because that I'm mama. She don't want nobody to talk about mama.
Right.
But recently I had a conversation with her in regards to alopecia areata, because with my diagnosis, it is hereditary. Mom has it, grandmother has it, and they decide to wear head wraps or wigs, but in the confines of their home, they'll let it all hang out, and we understand this. And so I said to my daughter recently, I said, I'm not speaking anything negativity over you at all, but what I'm doing is preparing you for what no one did for me. You may or may not have to experience alopecia. How do you feel about that? Very quickly, her response was, Mom, if you can do it, I know I can.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
You can do it. I know that I can. And that is part of what advocacy is. And that's the reason why we have to speak out about it, because it's empowering. This is why this movement is so important, because someone can say, if she can do it with all that she's faced, I know that I can. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Because some, like you said, some alopecia diagnoses are hereditary. And of course, I have a daughter, and you're concerned.
Yes.
But I hope that if something were to happen, that, like you said, she would have my example. That, I'm walking in courage, I'm walking in confidence, and I'm being who God has created me to be.
Yeah.
I'm loving my skin.
Yes.
It was a time for many, 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 many years. Between my onset to my, reveal was 30 years.
Wow.
30 years.
Wow.
10 of those years, I had no hair on the top of my head. So I was really confounded to wearing wigs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had no confidence. I had no self-esteem. So now when people look at me, they see what God sees.
Yeah.
They see his glory, because
yes.
I know, like you were saying, when you were shaving and you could hear, the blades ripping, cutting the hair, that you also were going free.
Yeah.
It also represented every weight and every load that had been bearing you down. And that's what happened. We have that release in our inward man when we just realize, okay, I'm going free. And I know that this is not me. Now, I know I couldn't have done it by myself. So I know it's the Lord. I have to give him all glory because had it not been for him,
for it, because that's something like, and even as you were talking, I kind of had to think back, is that he gets all the power, he gets all the glory and all the honor. And if for those of us that do serve him, we then have that ability to tap in, or to be to receive that power that he gives us. And so when I in that moment took use of that power that he gave me to choose life, to choose freedom.
Yes.
I took full advantage of that moment. Yes, there were some reservations there, but I knew that this was the moment that I had to take. And that's one thing about the power of alignment, is when you know that you are in God's will and his divine time, it doesn't matter. Everything else has to just be pushed to a side, or you're going to miss that moment. And for me, there was something about that timing of it all. And maybe it had to be 9/11 for me. It was a state of emergency for Stacey, for me to see, ooh, this is an alert for you. You gotta, because God, for me, he deals with me with signs and angelic presence and things like that. So for me, it was one of those things. I had to be like, okay, this is it. But for someone else, it may be a compliment about a beautiful compliment that had nothing to do with your exterior. Someone may say, you know what, I honestly love the way that you listen to me. It could be, we have to pay attention to how God orchestrates people in our lives to bring us into alignment when it comes to particular transitions in life. And so this was something for me, this huge major transition that happened on 9/11/19 really just opened up so many doors for me. Yes. And like you read in the bio, it only a few months ago from me breaking free did I start the alopecia movement. I started the movement this year. And it already has built momentum. Why? Because I decided to trust God in the process of me going through this journey of alopecia. I just decided to be like, you know what? I don't know how this is going to be. I don't know how specific or where my niche is with this, because there's enough to go around for all of us. You have your platform, I have my platform, she has her. And that's the one thing too. Do it. Don't worry about if you have 2 followers or 2,500 followers. Do it, because there's somebody who needs to hear your story from your mouth. There is somebody who needs to be able to identify with your journey for them to then wake up and understand that it's something bigger for them to then share as well. And so it took that push, and honestly, every day I wake up, it's on my mind. It has become a ministry of sorts. It has become a pathway for other women to connect to it, to build and to collaborate. That's why I'm so glad I met you. We're collaborating right now.
Yes. It really is wonderful. I mean, because of the like you said, the exposure, and if you're doing a little bit, you're doing a little bit. One can chase 1,000.
Yeah.
Put to flight 10,000. And so my story may be different than your story. And so we can reach other people. You know, they may not want to hear my story. It may be different because my alopecia is the androgenic, which is the balding, male pattern balding.
Yes.
And so maybe I can reach somebody who's experiencing that, where you can reach someone who's experiencing the spots, the areata. Now, sometimes alopecia areata turns into alopecia universalis, which is total loss. Has that been your experience, or
it's starting to, like, for example, like one half of my leg is bare, the other half has a little stubble on it. You know, my eyebrows are thinning more and more. I've lost eyelashes and they've grown back. I've lost hair on my arms and they'll grow back. And it's something that I have mentally and really kind of prepared myself for that, it may or may not be type of thing. In the beginning, I was really freaked out about it because we may think that we don't need our eyelashes, but we do. They're important because they protect our eyes from debris. If you've never had any eyelashes before, just picture yourself without an umbrella on the heaviest, rainiest day, and you're crying, and there's nothing holding those. You know, just certain things you just take for granted until you lose it. And then you're like, okay, well then what is the story behind this? What is the meaning behind this? And for me, it always comes spiritual first. You know, and in that season, I was in drought seasons of my life, and I needed to feel another sensation to wake me up to certain things of my life, you know. But they grew back. So, hey, I'm grateful for that. So you just have to take it in stride. But the one thing I understand is that, like you were saying, you are not alone. And I think that's another layer of sensitivity that I can then have to women that have alopecia universalis and say, you know what, I was there for a couple of months, my hair grew back in certain areas, but I can sympathize for you and I can hold compassion for you in this moment to know that you are not alone. So it's a reason for it all.
Yeah. Whew. This is really great. This is really, really good. So, a lot of times on our platforms, we talk about the struggles that we go through as alopecians. You know what? I want you to talk about, because you kind of covered a lot of that evolution from age 19 to where the age you are now. And then, we talked about your trusting in God and how you've overcome those types of challenges or struggles. What's your greatest victory? Because a lot of times we don't think we have victory as bald women. So what's the greatest victory that you've had as a result of alopecia?
Wow. So, wow. I believe I'm on the onset of that, to be honest with you. But I will say one of the things that I can say, was really being consistent in showing my vulnerabilities publicly when it comes to alopecia. For those that can say they know me or knew of me prior to me exposing and really being free and in my baldness, I was always one to have it together, poised. I was actually, I was a certified personal trainer, but I actually competed in natural muscle competitions. So I was used to being on stage, bearing it all, with the bikini on, but I had hair on my head. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was used to being put together, showing myself in a certain way in my body and being comfortable. But then now it's almost as if it's in reverse. Now you don't have nothing on your head and you're covered up. So now it's what is coming from you now that you can reflect to then show and share and to spark change for people. So it was a challenge in really getting comfortable with expressing myself and being vulnerable in a way that I don't know who's all watching the videos. I don't know who's all looking at the pictures. I don't, of course you have your particulars where they click a follow and you understand, or they'll notify you if you get a like or comment, fine. But there are so many people that I've been able to touch and talk to and really help in their walk in their journey in alopecia. That's victory for me, is that it took me having to face my vulnerability and just get outside of myself, so to speak, and out of my way, and just allow for my story to be shown and to be used for God's glory. Yeah. To me, that's a victory. I still believe that there's another one coming. So until then, I'm just excited about what He's done so far.
Yes, I totally believe that there's more coming. That vulnerability and transparency is major. And I think for myself, that being open and honest first with yourself, and how people are attracted to that. Like people they're comfortable when you are able to be vulnerable and when you're able to be genuine and real. And, I found that more people they talk to me. Of course, I know that they're originally looking at my head, but, I walk into a room and I'm smiling and immediately they walk past me. Hey, how are you? And it's just having the willingness.
That part. Having the willingness to be, and speaking up and out. What I also noticed was, like, when I speak first, people when they respond, they actually are responding to me face to face, because sometimes I can sense when people look at me and walk past, but if I speak first, they're like, oh, hey, they're more receptive, if you will. And I think that goes to show the power of owning who you are, and the power of really understanding that it does take you to walk in this firmly and do it afraid if you are. But when you begin to do it and consistently do it, what you get back in return is just more appreciation from God Because at this point, what you're saying is this: God, I accept how you made me. And not only do I accept it, but I appreciate it, because things could have gone a different way.
Right.
I could have had a different type of proclivity, if you will, that was more exposed. You know, sometimes I think about the 10 lepers and how it would have been if they were alive today. You know, just how they would actually have to verbalize their diagnosis and say that they were unclean. We don't have to do that. You know, we don't have to do that. All we have to do is just say, this is what I am. I'm bold and bald, and I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. How are you today? You know? So I remind myself, it's just like, girl, you know, there's other stuff that you could just cry over, but not this. You can conquer this. And that's one of the things that I really, you know, because it's like this. Sometimes you go on a roller coaster ride. I will say this: I am more on the up than I am down. I thank God for that. But I think most of the times when I'm like on a slope, it really is my heart for women that are suffering silently more than anything. Right. I think about the women that, you know, I once was, who just was like taking off her wig after a hot day and just like, I don't want to have to wear this no more. But you felt obligated to do it because you just weren't ready to do it yet. And so my heart goes out to those women to say, listen, I remember how it was. Mm-hmm. I also remember that day of freedom. And guess what? Your day is coming. Yeah. I'm going to be here cheering you on.
Yeah. Go, baby. Go, girl. All right. Let's talk a little bit about your organization. You are the founder of the Alopecia Queen Movement. Mm-hmm. So tell our listeners about your organization and how you derived at the name, particularly movement.
Okay, yeah. Well, the Alopecia Queen Movement was founded in April of this year. And it just kind of came about because I started to do, and I still do, every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, Clubhouse. For those of you that have the app, look for Alopecia Queen Movement, just that whole name, or you can look for Stacey Halton and follow the group that way. But we meet every Tuesday on Clubhouse at 9 p.m. And it started off, I was actually doing 2 days out of a week in the beginning when Clubhouse really started to take off. And as I had to pick a name, you know what I mean? And so I always coined myself as the Alopecia Queen. So I tagged on movement because I saw at that moment that I was moving toward the goal for myself. Mm. And I didn't know what it was going to go to, but I knew that in order for me to reach any goal, any one of us, we have to put movement to it. We have to put feet to our faith. And for me, that's courage. So in order for me to walk this thing out, I had to put courage to my feet along with faith and get moving. And so that's how I came up with just tackle on movement, because it couldn't just be for me. And in order for it to reach other women, it had to be something mobile. And so the Alopecia Queen Movement primarily is for women. However, I've assisted men. Men contact me wanting to know how to get through this. And I often find myself partnering them up with other men that have alopecia that I'm friends with or networks that I'm connected with. Children too. But my main goal, the reason why I say women, and it's no exclusion of men or children. Like I said, I help either or. But for me, it's the motherhood of life. It's for me, it's just where, you know, we come from women. We come from the nurturing of a woman when it comes to our hair originally. In most households, it's your mom who does your hair. It's your mom who helps you pick out your first hairstyle or takes you to your hairdresser for the first time. It's your mom who you discuss your next hairdo and things like that. And so I wanted that same feel of it, of nurturing from a woman. And that's primarily why I know my vein, as we all know. But with the Alopecia Queen Movement, I also do a live at 5 p.m. on Sunday evenings. And that gives an opportunity, like what you're doing here, gives a voice to those that may not otherwise have one, or I actually love to promote women who may not think they have much to say about what they're going through in it. And I'm more of like a cheerleader. Hey, I have a platform. You can use it. Let's listen to you. Let's give volume to what you're saying, because that's how it keeps moving. That's the power of collaboration. And so I'm a strong believer in that. What's in store for Alopecia Queen Movement is so much things that I'll share a few of those things. We do have some upcoming series coming up on the Facebook Live, but my thing that I'm really looking forward to is, I know you all are watching it right now, but Tuesday, later on this evening at 9 p.m. Eastern, log on to Clubhouse, because this conversation tonight is going to be one that you are going to want to be a part of, whether you have alopecia or not, and it's called Bald by Choice. So we are really giving women that have chosen to be beautiful and bald. They don't have diagnosis of alopecia. They are not in chemo. They literally wake up every day and decide to be bald. And then, of course, we have women that have alopecia. So it's going to be a panel discussion of women who are bald by choice and women that didn't choose this. And so that is tonight on Clubhouse at 9 p.m. The other things I have coming up is I would love to really have a alopecia awareness camp for not just for children, but for us big kids, like women like me and you, where we can literally let our hair down, so to speak, and have activities where we're out, doing stuff that we normally would have done maybe 40 years ago, 50 years ago, getting back to that childhood of us, where we didn't have a care in the world, including what our hair looked like, back to the innocence of that, and explore just for 2 days of just outdoors and just enjoy some activities. I am definitely a woman that loves to be outdoors, but also, of course, the fitness part, that's part of me as well. But we have to put some fun in there too. So I'm working on that for next year, along with some other projects. So just stay connected. Facebook and Instagram, the same thing, Alopecia Queen Movement. And as you can see, the email is there as well.
Awesome. Well, they can find you on IG,
yes.
Facebook, everything, right? Twitter.
Yes. Twitter. And even Clubhouse, the same thing, Alopecia Queen Movement, all across the board. Okay,
as we're finishing up, I want to ask you this. So I was on Clubhouse one time with you, and we were talking about hair loss as a grieving process.
Yes.
I thought that was really interesting, because, as the different stages of grieving, a loss is a loss. Whether it's a loved one or it's your hair, it's a loss. And so you related that to different seasons that we go through as alopecians. Yes. So we are in all different seasons in our journey. So like some people are still in the denial, because that's where we were. You have others who are in the acceptance and the other stages between. So as a chaplain, you're everything, girl. You're a woman of many faces. So as a chaplain, I know. I mean, I understand, because I feel the same way sometimes, because I wear so many hats and you do so many things. That's because God has just gifted you, trusted you, because He knew that you would carry it out.
Yes.
And so that's how I look at it. Like, God, I don't know why you gave this to me, but you must have trusted me enough to make it work. So, okay, here we go. But now, as a chaplain, what encouragement would you give to someone in each season?
Well, I'm going to really start with the season of denial. I'm not going to go in any particular order. The reason why I say denial is because, to me, that is the one that I struggle with the most.
Yes.
And I think that's the one that causes us to really surrender. And the reason why is because we're holding on to something that's not real. And that's what denial is you're not ready to accept it, But really what you have to accept is that what you're holding on to is something that you need to give up, surrender. And so my suggestion and here's the thing, on the other side of surrender is acceptance, but it also is freedom.
Yeah.
On the
Yes.
other side of surrender, it's healing. And so it's just like anything. When you hold on to something too tight, there's one or two things happens. You either suffocate it and it dies, or you lose it from your grip. And so why not just give it to God so that he can better handle what you're trying to hold on to? And so my advice and my prayer is that for those, who's watching that is in that place of denial, know this, that the minute that you accept it, it doesn't mean that you're not going to hurt. But what it does mean is that God can help now.
Yes, I love it.
Meaning that he's going to help. How? Why? Because now your hands are free to receive the help. Now your hands are open so that you can receive the love, the support, the wisdom, and even other people that God will align you with, so that we get through the next phases of this process. So I started with denial. So one of the ones is anger. Oh my goodness, anger is such a powerful emotion, because it's not always negative to be angry. Sometimes it's we need to feel something, and sometimes we just need to get mad. And even the Bible speaks about, you can go ahead and be angry, but it's what you do with that anger. We don't want to go outside of the parameters of having emotions, right? So with the anger, we have to be careful of how far we push that anger. Am I getting angry enough to want to harm myself? Am I getting angry enough to where I want to harm others? And so my advice, obviously, in my prayer is that we understand that anger has limits, but with God, he is an unlimited God. So again, with that anger, express it, but understand that on the other side of that, you have to be able to go to God so that he can take that ball of fire that's in you and put things in a more perspective for you, so that you can see there's only so far that I can really truthfully go with this anger anyway.
Right.
Without destructing, without self-deteriorating. And so surround yourself with people that can help boost you up. Surround yourself with people that can say, girl, you need to calm down a little bit. I know you're mad, but this is something that you can channel that energy into something else. How do you do that? How do you change? How can you change that anger? I'm mad. I lost my hair. What do you mean? Channel my. Seriously, that's what I was like. I'm mad.
Yeah.
There is somebody out there who has lost more than their hair. There is somebody out there who is dealing with a traumatic loss that they can't get back. You have an opportunity right now to turn that anger into appreciation. Wow. God, I appreciate that you give me an opportunity to breathe again.
Yes.
So that you can help me figure this out. And so it takes time to get to that mindset to try to really slow things down. But that starts when you go ahead and surrender.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it. You are amazing, and this was such an amazing time together.
I enjoyed
collaborating. I'm so just excited about where you're going and what you're doing. And of course, I'm going to be in the camp. So I'm going to be in the camp.
Yes.
So I want to encourage everybody. Stacey's information is still up on the screen. So if you want to talk to her, you have a question for her. Also, for bookings and appearances, she can be reached at the email address. You can also follow the Alopecia Queen Movement on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course, Clubhouse.
Yes.
And so I'm so excited for you, Stacey, and what you're doing. And I want you to know